these are ones that we're working with currently. As to whether or not any of these will materialize, who knows? It's all a game of numbers and a game of competing with other locations that obviously want these businesses to settle in other parts of the country. But with all that we have to offer, as far as this being a quality place to live, we feel like we've got as good a chance as anyone in attracting them.
Well, Deborah, you know, one of the things that I have focused on is their operational budget, and they were actually fairly honest with those numbers. They said 1.9 million over a 4-year period, which is about right, around $450,000–500,000 a year, just for operational budgets. But they've also received, by their numbers, some $4 million in grants.
Now, the idea is the grant money goes to the county, it goes directly to the county. However, Team Santa Rosa does a lot of work behind the scenes in deciding who's going to get that grant money, like whose property is going to get purchased with that grant money, and perhaps...
You mean at the close to the public meetings that they have constantly?
That we've filed a question with the state's attorney's office as to whether or not they need to be open.
Now, once again, and look, I'm just going off of their numbers. You saw it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this show, I think you're probably fairly familiar with Santa Rosa County. They are now claiming this year that by team's efforts that they have created 850 jobs. Now, as I see their argument, that's 850 jobs over the last 4 years that they've created. And, you know, I just don't see it, don't believe it, dog and pony show. The one thing that...
That's 1.9 million in opera. But now I'll also mention with some of the grant money, we know that some of those grant dollars they've received have gone towards recently former board members for various reasons. So that every dime of that...
Well, you know, the way it works at Team is when there's money available to you and you're a board member, you resign at 11 o'clock, you get your grant money, and then about 2:30 that afternoon you become a board member again. So, you know.
Well, that's just our opinion, though.
Yeah, just my humble opinion.
We don't know. We don't have any way of knowing for sure.
Yeah, because we've never been at a meeting.
We do know that a board member was involved in recruiting for a $70,000 a year job that he ended up getting.
Right, and we also know that a board member got a $170,000 grant from the military.
Right.
So, one of the things that I want to point out to you, and at least Ed Gray was honest enough to say, I don't know if this will materialize or not, but keep your eye on the ball, ladies and gentlemen. I added the numbers up, and they have promised you potentially, maybe 1,800 jobs. See, they're stepping up their efforts now to re-educate you, so you're not, so you won't talk bad about them.
What I found interesting about that list was that we recently spent $200,000 on marketing for the aerospace industry in this area, and I don't believe I recall seeing any new aerospace companies on that list.
Well, you know, look, if
maybe the marketing didn't pay off.
If you're failing, you might as well fail bigger. You know.
We hope they'll succeed. I'd like to have jobs available in this area. What they said, their goal for the coming year, is they're going to work with the schools on trying to
re-educate our children now.
Right. Well, they're gonna advise them on what VOTEC programs companies are looking for. That's one of their focuses. And the other one is they've got a list of capital projects that includes some land purchases, and they'd like to get that done. And of course, one of those purchases is something that's been floating around for a while.
the Pullum Park. And you know what? Mr. Pullum is a multi-millionaire.
Right.
Maybe close to the B word.
Right.
And
as far as we know.
Very successful land operations, housing, and all this kind of stuff. If Mr. Pullum, the very big, lot of zeros after his income, if he cannot make a go with an industrial park, why do we think we can make a go with an industrial park?
Especially since we have now 160 acres new that has nothing in it. We have an existing industrial park that's
It has next to nothing in
a
it.
tad deserted.
Right.
We have one up in Jay. They're scattered throughout the county. Now we need one more, they're saying, because it's near I-10.
Well, now we're going to close, and this is the part I've been looking forward to is, and we want you to watch this clip first, and then we got some comments on
Okay.
that. So roll tape.
And let me just talk about high quality jobs. I mean, we always say high quality jobs, and people go, you know, what do they mean by high quality jobs? Where we don't turn away companies when they come if we believe they're a fit. When we go out and spend dollars to market to targets, we are looking at aerospace and defense, IT, logistics, some manufacturing. But we are looking at companies that truly do pay above the county's average wage. And that's what we call high quality jobs. One of the things that we have been really fortunate about, we've seen that average wage rate climb over the last 5 years. And we're probably not going to see that in the next year. And I wanted to make sure everybody understood, gosh, have they slacked off and they're not looking at high quality jobs anymore? Actually, we are. But Rick actually explained it very articulately when he said this next set of average wage rates, what it's going to incorporate is all of the retail growth that we've seen in Santa Rosa County. And while they are good retail jobs, retail does not compete with average wage rate with respect to industries. And so we are apt to see our average wage rate lower a little bit, which is not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination, but just wanted to make sure that's not an indicator of looking at lesser quality industries coming into the area.
So Miss Cindy Anderson, the executive director of Team Santa Rosa, she wants us to be patient with her because she doesn't think they're going to create very many jobs this year. You continue to want to have dog and pony shows like this. In this same meeting, you said 1,800 jobs potentially, but now you're saying at the end of the meeting, we're not quite so sure if we're even going to have one quality job this year.
The average wage is going to go down. Is the gist of that?
You know, and you want us to be patient, of course. Now this is my humble opinion. I've been patient 4.5 years waiting for you to have a public meeting. I've been patient 4.5 years waiting for a flow of documentation from your organization. You know what? Nobody trusts you. You keep a tight-knit group in there. You don't have public meetings. We don't know what you're working on. And I'm tired of you using my money against me in things like trying to stop DCA. It's just ridiculous.
And allocating funds, franchise fee funds and other monies towards property purchases.
Buying up property from people that they can't sell.
From influential people.
Well, they can't sell it.
Well, we don't know that, but it's certainly a possibility.
Well, they can't sell it on the open market, but government will buy it.
That's likely.
You know.
That's likely.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've enjoyed the show once again every Saturday from 4:35, channel 27. I'm Jerry Cooey.
I'm Deborah Nelson. Good night.